Hello, today we're going to carry on with decimals. I know that a few of you had a problem trying to get a hold of yesterday's film, so you seem to have got it, so I think today is just about practice. We're going to carry on looking at hundredths, and actually Maths No Problem have done what they like to do, and they like to throw in a problem. So we've been talking about decimals, and all of a sudden they've brought in some scales and have started talking about kilograms, but we're not going to let that put us off. I think they're trying to trick us. So I've got my pointer, and here it says, Miss Mihag designed an interesting kitchen scale. And it is interesting. Have a look at it. Can you see what it weighs in? It weighs in kilograms. Now normally when we talk about kilograms, we talk about a kilogram being 1,000 grams. But actually we're not working in thousands, we're working in hundredths. So we're going to forget about grams and kilograms, we're going to remember our hundredths. So in a way we're even just going to ignore kilograms for now, we're just going to have our whole ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 whole ones. So her scale can weigh up to 5 whole ones. Now if she weighed something on her scale and it was less than a whole one, then we'd be using these tiny squares. Do you remember from yesterday that these are called hundredths? She's divided each whole one into 100 pieces called hundredths. I hope that you're not feeling confused, and we're going to go through it and hopefully it will make sense. Right, so here I've chopped her off. I've chopped her in half because she's trying to confuse us. So here we have some sugar. Now it already says on the packet of sugar how much it weighs, but let's just check. It weighs 2 kilograms. So the sugar weighs 2 whole kilograms. Now here I've got rid of her altogether, and we've got some oranges, and this time they weigh 1 whole kilogram, but actually not, this one isn't whole at all. So let's see, I'll get my pen if it will let me. Okay, this one we have 1 whole kilogram, and we have, I'm looking at it, they're very small squares. I know that some of you yesterday had problems trying to read them in the workbook. They are tricky. They're divided into 100 and they're in rows of 10. So actually if I was going to count my rows, I would see that there are 9 rows of 10. 9 rows of 10. So I know that there are 9 tenths. So I have 1.9 kilograms. 1.9 kilograms. Right, let's go on to the next. Here we have some popcorn or some potatoes, I'm not quite sure, and they are on a scale. They're on her sort of strange scale, isn't it? So let's have a look with the laser pointer. These, what should we say? I'd rather that they were popcorn because that's more exciting. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 whole ones. So here it says how many whole ones? We've got 4 ones. Now every time we have a row, a strip of 10, that is a tenth. Very, very difficult to see here. I've got my glasses on and I've got my nose right up to the screen, but I still can't see it very well. But we have 2 rows. 2 rows of 10 is 2 tenths. 2 tenths. Now when we break up one of those rows of 10, we're breaking them up into hundredths. Now I'm just going to have to take their word for it here. There are 9 hundredths. 9 hundredths. So each of these little squares are hundredths. And I'm going to write it like this. Now Ethan down here has already done it for you, but I'm going to write it with you. So there are 4 ones. Do you know, before this I'm actually going to do my place value grid. So we have our ones, we have our tenths, and we have our hundredths. So in the tenths column I've got 2 tenths, so I'm going to write 2 tenths. In the hundredths column I've got 9 hundredths, 9 of these little squares, so I'm going to write 9 in the hundredths. So we say this as 4.29. We don't say 4.29, we say 4.29. It shows that we have 4.29 kilograms of popcorn, big pieces of popcorn. Okay, here I have her strange scales again. Let's see what she's weighing this time. She's got a parcel or a cake there, hasn't she? So I'm going to use my pointer. We have got 1 whole one, 2 whole ones, and here we've got a whole row of 10. So I'm going to write that out with you. We have got 2 whole ones, and we've got a row of tenths. So in my one column I have got 2, and then I have 1 row of 10, so I've got 1/10. Every single one of those rows of 10s is 1/10. Don't forget the decimal point. I actually don't have any hundredths, so I don't need to write that in. I could write no hundredths, and that's absolutely fine. It would still be the same number. We have to remember that each of those rows of 10, I'm going to draw it here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Each of those rows of 10, that equals 1/10. It's not 10 tens, it is 1/10. It is 1/10, or I could write it as 0.1. Each of those rows, the whole row, is 1/10. If I chop that row up any smaller, then we're talking about hundredths, because that whole one has been chopped into 100 pieces. If you're confused, you could play this video again. Don't get confused by the kilograms. If you like, you can just cross that out and ignore it, and just remember that we're dealing with whole ones. We're dealing with tenths. Imagine that these whole ones were cut into 10 pieces. There would be tenths. Or we're dealing with all these tiny little pieces because it's been chopped into 100. Let's have a look at what your workbook is asking you to do. Okay, we're going to have the same problem as yesterday because you have to get your magnifying glass out. Here we're weighing some flour. We can see we have got one whole one. So I would write that down as I have got, oops, didn't pick up my pen that time. Okay, I've got 1 whole one. Don't forget the decimal point. Now, how many rows of 10 have you got? If I literally put my glasses right up to the screen, I can see I've got 3 rows of 10. So I've got 3/10. So I've got 1 whole one. I've got 3 rows of 10, so that is 3/10. And then I've got another 1. Now I think I've got 3. If I'm wrong, you can correct me. But I think with those tiny hundredths, I've got 3 of them. So I would write it like that. I would write 1.33. And that's what I would write. Again, maths no problem. They like to give us lots of boxes too, so don't worry about that. As long as you have your answer written down, I have 1 whole one, a decimal point, I have 3 rows of 10, and I have 3 hundredths. that's what it would look like. And now I've got visitor. Right, the second one, if we look at B, we've got 1, 2, so we've got 2 whole ones. So I'm going to write it in my same place value grid, 2 whole ones, and then look at the rows. Looking at that, I think I've got 4 rows. You might not agree with me, but I've got 4 rows of 10, and then I've got another one. I think I've got 5 individual hundredths. So you have a go and see if you agree with me. The second sheet I think is a little bit simpler. So the second sheet is asking you to show the decimal. So here is my 1 whole one is the whole of this, and then 2/10. So that is 1/10. And then I've got another one which is another 10th. And then 5 hundredths. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's what I would colour in, is those ones, and then you will carry on and do the rest. If you can't see the squares, don't worry, just write down what you think it is. I will know whether you've understood it or not. If you get stuck, play the film again, otherwise just have a go. Alright then, good luck.